The night they flew low enough to touch the water, May 16, 1943. Rofscampton, Lincolnshire, England. 9:47 p.m. The engines of 19 Lancaster bombers growl in the cool spring night. A low, guttural thunder rolling across the airfield. Floodlights sweep the tarmac, glinting off the dark, slick fuselages of aircraft, freshly painted for this one mission. On each of them, under the bomb bay, sits a weapon no one has ever used in combat before. A weapon that might not even work. Inside the briefing hut, Wing Commander Guy Gibson is 24 years old but already a veteran of over 170 sorties, stands before his men. His voice is steady, confident, but his eyes betray the weight of what's about to happen. Tonight, gentlemen, we strike at the heart of Germany's war machine, the Ruhr dams. If we succeed, we could cripple their power for months, but to do it, we'll have to fly lower than anyone ever has. A nervous chuckle ripples through the room. The kind soldiers make when they know the odds are bad. Maps of the Ruhr Valley are pinned to the wall, red pencil lines tracing their routes across occupied Europe. 3 targets, Mchen, Eder, and Sorp, all heavily defended. The plan sounds almost suicidal. Fly at 60 feet above the water, at exactly 232 miles per hour. Drop a spinning bomb that skips like a stone and hit a concrete wall no wider than a football field. Any higher or lower, and the weapon will fail. Any deviation, and the aircraft will be torn apart by flak or terrain. And yet, no one backs down. Outside, the crews pull on their May Wests, tighten their parachute harnesses, and climb into the giant Avro Lancasters. Mechanics check propellers and oil pressure one last time. The air smells of gasoline, wet grass, and fear. In aircraft AGG Gibson zone, Navigator Flying Officer Hutchison calls out bearings. While Rear Gunner SGT, Hutchison scans the horizon for enemy fighters. The men exchange brief words, not speeches, not goodbyes, just quiet nods, the kind soldiers give when words no longer matter. At precisely 9:39 p.m., Gibson's Lancaster begins to roll. For Merlin engines scream to life, and the bomber thunders down the runway, lifting into the blackness. One by one, the others follow -617 Squadron's entire strike force rising into the night. Their formation disappearing into the clouds like ghosts. Below, the English countryside slips away, villages darkened under blackout. Winding rivers flashing briefly under moonlight. At 10:01 p.m., they cross the English coast near Cromer and head east, toward enemy territory. They fly so low that church steeples and trees blur past the cockpit windows. Every man aboard knows that one wrong move means instant death. Inside the lead aircraft, Gibson steadies his voice over the intercom. "All right, boys, keep it tight. Watch those pylons." A few miles behind him, another Lancaster clips a wave and bounces hearts. Stop, but the pilot recovers, climbing back to 60 feet. The crew bursts into nervous laughter, adrenaline flooding their veins. As they approach the Dutch coast, radar stations light up. German spotlights sweep the sky, searching. Gibson orders radio silence. The Lancasters press on, hugging the surface of lakes and rivers where the radar can't find them. Tracer fire erupts from below, orange streams clawing upward through the night. The gunners hold their fire. The objective is to stay invisible, silent, fast. For the men of 617 Squadron, this is no ordinary bombing raid. They are testing a weapon designed by Barnes Wallis, an eccentric British engineer who dreamed that physics could win wars. His bouncing bomb, codenamed Upkeep, is a drum-shaped device spinning backward at 500 revolutions per minute. Dropped at just the right speed and altitude, it will skip over the water, strike the dam wall, sink, and detonate, releasing a pressure wave strong enough to shatter concrete. It sounds like science fiction, yet tonight, that fiction becomes fate. By midnight, the formation nears the Ruhr Valley. Below them lies a landscape bathed in moonlight, farms, rivers, winding roads. And in the distance, the black silhouette of the Mtn Dam, guarded by towers, searchlights, and flak guns. Gibson looks down. His altimeter reads 60 feet. The bomb aimer, Flight Lieutenant Spam Martin, is ready. The dam looms larger in the cockpit glass. Gibson breathes in slowly and keys the intercom. "All right, boys. Let's make history." The first Lancaster banks hard left, lining up for its run. Machine gun tracers rise like fiery rain. Gibson holds steady, hands locked on the controls. The black water below flashes white with explosions. And through it all, the voice of the navigator cuts through the chaos. Measured, impossibly steady, steady, steady. Bombs gone. The upkeep weapon drops, skips across the surface, 1, 2, 3 bounces, then disappears beneath the waterline. A heartbeat later, the night explodes in a column of white spray. A Thames Q. The Mtn Dam shudders, but holds one pass down. 18 more aircraft to go. The second wave the wall cracks gives the Mtn Dam shudders, but holds. One pass down. 18 more aircraft to go. 0:32 hours. May 17, 1943. Mtn Dam, Ruhr Valley, Germany. Smoke drifts across the moonlit reservoir like mist from another world. The air smells of cordite and burned oil. The water below glows faintly with reflections of tracer fire. From the towers on the dam, German gunners keep firing upward. Their flak bursts so close that Gibson's Lancaster rattles from the shockwaves. Inside the cockpit, sweat beads on his forehead despite the cold. His voice cracks through the radio, clipped, controlled. Formation, stay low. We go again. He circles back, not to drop another bomb, but to draw the enemy's fire. Behind him, the second Lancaster, flown by Flight Lieutenant Mick Martin, code AJP, begins its run. Martin's aircraft roars over the reservoir, engines screaming, altitude needle trembling at 60 feet. The crew's eyes dart between the altimeter, the searchlights, and the shadowed outline of the dam wall ahead. From the ground, the German gunners see it coming. Dozens of flak bursts illuminate the sky like fireworks, turning night into chaos. One shell detonates so close that shrapnel punches holes through the fuselage. The flight engineer yells, "We're hit." But Martin doesn't pull up. "Hold her steady, hold her steady." The bomb aimer calls out, "Now." The bomb releases. It bounces perfectly once, twice spinning wildly across the water. Then it strikes the dam and slides beneath the surface. Seconds later, a dull, heavy hump rolls through the valley. A column of water rises hundreds of feet high, then collapses in a white roar. The crew cheers briefly. When the spray clears, the dam still stands. The radio crackles, "Gibson, good run, Mick." No visible breach. Let's keep them coming. He knows the odds are brutal. The first two bombs had hit dead end. At the dam's immense thickness, over 130 feet at the base, makes it nearly invulnerable to conventional explosives. But Barnes Wallis's bouncing bomb isn't conventional. Its underwater detonation presses directly against the dam's foundation. Cumulative stress, not instant destruction. One good hit after another, and even the strongest wall begins to crack. At 0:43, the third aircraft, Flight Lieutenant Dingy Young's Ajaya, lines up for attack. Gibson flies beside him, deliberately exposing himself to the gunners to split their fire. His rear gunner rakes a flak position on the right tower, silencing it. Dingy drops his bomb, perfect aim. The explosion is deafening. Even from 500 yards away, Gibson's crew can feel it through their boots. This time, the water doesn't just erupt, it boils. The floodlight towers vanish in a cloud of spray. And then, for the first time, the dam shivers visibly. Over the intercom, the voice of one of Gibson's crewmen breaks the silence. "Skipper, I think she's going." He's right. A long, jagged crack snakes across the concrete face. At first, it's just a hairline fracture. Then it widens, trembling under the weight of millions of tons of water. Suddenly, a dark plume bursts from the base, a thin stream that becomes a torrent. Gibson leans forward, watching the impossible unfold. "She's breaking," he whispers. Moments later, the Emchies Dam collapses in a thunderous roar. The wall gives way with a grinding, sickening sound that echoes through the valley. A black wave of water nearly 400 million tons surges forward, devouring everything in its path. Trees snap like matchsticks, railway lines vanish. Entire villages, still asleep, are swallowed in minutes. In the cockpit of a JG, the crew stares in awe and horror. They've done it, but the sight is almost too terrible to believe. "Good God," one mutters. "We really did it." Gibson doesn't answer. He's already thinking ahead. There's another dam still standing, the Eder, 30 miles to the south. He knows he'll have to take half his surviving aircraft and do it all over again. The radio crackles as he calls command. Emchies breached. Repeat, Emchies breached. Proceeding to Edor with remaining aircraft, he looks once more at the valley below, a river of destruction spreading through the Ruhr, where factories, power stations, and war plants will fall silent for weeks. Then he banks south. The night is far from over. The Eder run into the Valley of Shadows gives the Emchian Dam lies shattered behind them, its walls torn apart by the force of a man's idea and a squadron as courage. But for Gibson and the remaining crews of No. 617 Squadron, the mission isn't finished. One more target stands ahead, the Eder Dam, 125 hours. May 17, 1943. Somewhere over the heart of Germany. The Lancasters thunder low over the dark landscape, following winding valleys and ghostly rivers that shimmer faintly in the moonlight. Below them, the countryside rolls past forests, farmsteads, and small towns where people still sleep, unaware that an arm of destruction is gliding silently above their rooftops. In the lead aircraft, Wing Commander Guy Gibson scans his map, lit faintly by a red lamp. His face is pale, drawn exhaustion mixing with grim determination. The voice over the intercom is calm but taut. "Next target, the Eder. Keep your altitude low. Watch the ridgelines. It's going to be tight." The Eder Valley isn't like Emchian. There are no searchlights, no anti-aircraft guns, but it's far deadlier in its own way. The dam is nestled deep in a narrow gorge, surrounded by steep hills that make approach runs nearly impossible. To hit it, the pilots will have to dive between ridges, level out at 60 feet over the water, and release the bomb in seconds or crash. Flight Lieutenant Les Knight, piloting a Jaon, adjusts his oxygen mask and looks out over the moonlit hills. "This place looks like hell's own trap," he mutters. His navigator nods silently. As the first aircraft, Flight Lieutenant Mickey Martin circles to find a path. The crew realizes the terrain isn't just difficult, it's treacherous. Thick fog clings to the valley floor, curling like smoke around the treetops. The altimeter spins madly as they descend. Can't see the water, can't see the dam. The bomb aimer calls. Martin pulls up at the last moment, narrowly clearing a ridge. The valley below disappears again into the mist. "Abort that one," Gibson orders over the radio. "We'll make another pass. Find your line, then commit." The tension builds with every circuit. Each run burns precious fuel. The valley feels smaller with every turn, the walls closing in. At last, the fog thins. Through the haze, the Eder Dam emerges, massive, silent, and glistening like obsidian under the moonlight. The aircrew can see the thin white streak of spillway water flowing from its crest. Gibson exhales. There she is, the giant herself. Mickey Martin lines up again, dropping steeply into the approach. The bomber's engines roar as the aircraft dives between the hills, banking sharply to align with the reservoir. Bomb doors open. At 60 feet, the Lancaster levels out, barely above the water. The crosshairs line up. The bomb aimer's voice cuts through the static. Steady, steady, now. The cylindrical bomb drops, skips once, twice, and detonates against the dam wall. A flash of light blinds the crew. The shockwave hammers the aircraft like a physical blow. As the smoke clears, the wall still stands. No breach, the rear gunner reports, voice trembling. She's solid. Les Knight takes his turn. His aircraft, a Jaon, swings around for another run, engines straining. The valley echoes with the drone of Merlins. Gibson and Martin orbit above, watching. Knight dives in lower than anyone dared before. His wings nearly clip the water. Hold her steady, hold her steady. He releases. The bomb bounces perfectly, disappears beneath the surface, and then the entire reservoir erupts in a tower of water and debris. For a moment, there's silence. Then the radio explodes with voices. Direct hit. Look at that. She's gone. A deep rumble rolls through the valley as cracks spiderweb across the dam's massive face. The Eder begins to crumble, not instantly, but like something alive and wounded. The central section gives way and the water surges forward, bursting through the breach with unstoppable force. The roar of the flood drowns even the engines of the bombers. It's a sound of triumph and tragedy. Gibson watches from above, awe and dread mingling in his chest. That's it, boys. Eder's gone. We've done our job. Below, the torrent races down the valley, through bridges, farms, and villages that will never see dawn. There's no cheering this time, only silence on the intercom. Each man understands what their success means, strategically vital, yes, but at a terrible cost. Gibson finally speaks, his tone soft, reverent. Set course for home, gentlemen. Let's bring the rest of our boys back, as the Lancasters turn west. Their silhouettes vanish into the fading moonlight, leaving behind the broken wall of the Eder and a valley drowned in shadow. The flight home's silence over the North Sea gives the Eder Dam lies shattered. Its walls torn open and a valley once peaceful, now lost beneath a roaring tide. But the mission isn't over, not until they make it home. 2:40 hours, May 17, 1943. Somewhere over western Germany, the night sky stretches endlessly ahead, a cold, dark sea of stars. Below, the land glimmers faintly, with fires still burning from the raids. The surviving Lancasters of No. 617 Squadron are battered, fuel low, their crews exhausted but alert. Inside Wing Commander Guy Gibson's cockpit, the drone of the Merlin engines is hypnotic, steady, reassuring, alive. Yet behind that rhythm, there's a silence too heavy to ignore. One by one, the men begin to realize how few voices remain on the radio. 18 aircraft had taken off from RAF Scampton just 6 hours ago. Only 11 are now in the air. A JIA, a JC? No reply. Gibson mutters, scanning his comms. They didn't make it. The intercom crackles. Someone finally speaks quiet, almost hesitant. Skipper, do you think they got out? I don't know, Bob. I just don't know. He doesn't say what he's thinking that many never even had a chance. Some were hit by flak, others by power lines or rising terrain. Each loss weighs heavier than the success. The men fly on, hugging the treetops to avoid radar. The moon has set, leaving only blackness and the faint phosphorescence of rivers below. In-flight Lieutenant Les Knight's Lancaster, the one that broke the Eder. The mood is the same. His crew sits in silence, the adrenaline drained, replaced by a strange calm. The navigator scribbles in his log. Eder destroyed, heading west. Fuel critical. Keep her trimmed. Les, says the engineer softly. We'll make it. But will they? The long flight back to England means threading through searchlights, coastal defenses, and the deadly flak belts of the Ruhr. As they cross the Rhine, tracers streak upward like fireflies, a last, desperate attempt to bring them down. Gibson calls out, "Stay low, keep weaving. Don't give them a straight line." They dive to 150 feet, racing over farmland, their shadows gliding across barns and fields. Once, a spotlight sweeps over them, a beam of white that catches the tail fin for an instant before disappearing into cloud. By 3:40 hours, the dark ribbon of the North Sea appears ahead, endless, cold, and vast. The crews exhale in unison. That's it. Almost home. But the sea is no friend. The weather has turned. Low clouds hug the surface, and the horizon disappears. The pilots fly blind now, guided only by compass and faith. Gibson watches his fuel gauge fall. "We'll just make the coast," he says, though even he isn't sure. Over the intercom, a young gunner hums quietly, a shaky tune. Something like "Roll Out the Barrel." No one joins in, but everyone listens. It's the sound of life, of defiance. At 4:20, they catch the first faint flicker of English radar beacons. Cheers echo through the intercoms, tired, broken cheers, but cheers all the same. That's Scampton Control. "We've got you, 617. You're clear to land." One by one, the battered bombers touch down on the rain-slick runway. Gibson's Lancaster lands first, tires screeching. The ground crews rush out, flashlights bobbing in the dark. When the engines finally shut off, the sudden silence feels deafening. Gibson removes his headset, staring out at the faint dawn light creeping over the airfield. "How many back?" he asks. A flight officer hesitates, clipboard trembling in his hand. "Only 11, sir." Gibson nods slowly. 11, he repeats, not as a number, but a wound. He steps out of the cockpit, boots sinking into the damp earth, and watches the survivors roll in. The air smells of oil, rain, and loss. Some men laugh, others cry. A few just stand there, staring into nothing. They've done what no one thought possible. They've turned science, courage, and precision into victory. And yet, as the sun rises over Scampton, none of them feel victorious. Because behind every cheer, every photograph, every medal to come, there are 7 bombers still missing, somewhere between Germany and the sea. And no one will ever find them all. Aftermath, the cost of triumph. Gives dawn breaks over RAF Scampton. The Lancasters sit motionless on the tarmac, their fuselages scarred by shrapnel, their bomb bays empty, but their crews forever changed. The Dambusters have returned, yet not all of them. May 17, 1943, 6:10 hours. RAF Scampton, Lincolnshire. The first rays of sunlight pierce the mist rolling across the airfield. The ground crews move quietly among the aircraft, touching each one as though counting survivors of a battle fought in the sky. The usual chatter and laughter after a mission are absent. Instead, there's a solemn stillness, the kind that follows something extraordinary and terrible. Wing Commander Guy Gibson stands near his Lancaster, still wearing his flight jacket, eyes fixed on the horizon. He hasn't slept. He doesn't intend to. In his logbook, he writes with a steady hand, "Operation Chastise, successful. M. Chien and Eder breached. Casualties heavy." Behind him, the remaining crews gather for debriefing. The intelligence officers take notes as Gibson recounts each phase of the mission. When he describes the destruction of the MCN, his voice is firm. But when he speaks of the Eder and the aircraft that never returned, his tone falters. "They went in, as ordered," he says quietly, "and they never came back. Brave men, every one of them." He doesn't look up when he says it. Out of 133 airmen who took off that night, 53 were killed and 3 captured. The room falls silent as the final list is read aloud. Each name echoes like a bell tolling. Outside, mechanics are already refueling the surviving bombers. The war doesn't stop. Orders keep coming. Yet everyone knows nothing they do again will match what happened last night. That evening, as news of the raid spreads, London celebrates. The headlines shout, "Dams busted." And Britain strikes at Germany's heart. Photographs of Gibson and his men appear in every paper. Prime Minister Winston Churchill sends a message of praise. The press calls them heroes, legends, miracle workers. But inside the squadron huts, celebration feels hollow. Flight Lieutenant Les Knight sits at a mess table, a cup of tea gone cold in his hands. Across from him, an empty chair. His navigator's remains untouched. "We did it," he whispers. "But God help us, what did we really do?" Because word is spreading about what followed the dam's collapse. Entire valleys in Germany have been drowned. Factories destroyed, yes, but also villages swept away. Hundreds of civilians killed, including women and children. The raid's success has come with a moral weight no one can ignore. In London, scientists analyze the results with precision. The Ruhr industrial region, heart of Germany's war production, has been crippled. Power output plummets. Armament plants grind to a halt. For weeks, chaos ripples through the German war machine. Strategically, Operation Chastise is a stunning success. But in the quiet of Scampton, the airmen measure victory differently. That night, as the base finally grows still, Gibson walks alone down the line of battered Lancasters. He stops by a Jaya Dingy Young's aircraft. It came home without him. The mechanics have left the cockpit light on, and the empty seat glows faintly in the dark. He places his hand on the cold metal and whispers, "You did your part, old friend. Rest easy now." When he returns to his quarters, a telegram awaits official commendation. A request to attend an audience at Buckingham Palace. Soon, he will receive the Victoria Cross, the highest military honor in the British Empire. But that night, he cannot bring himself to open the envelope. Instead, he sits at his desk, staring at the mission maps, the red pencil lines that trace their deadly path across Europe. In the margins, someone has written 2 words, "Never again." Outside, rain begins to fall, a steady, quiet rhythm against the window pane. Somewhere far away in the valleys of the Ruhr, that same rain mingles with the floodwaters left behind by the Dambusters. History will call it a triumph. The men who lived it will always know it was something far more complicated. Echoes of the Dambusters' legacy in the skies. Gives the rain has stopped, but its rhythm lingers like memory. At RF Scampton, the Dambusters' raid is already being dissected, studied, and mythologized. Yet for the men who flew that night, the echoes of their low, desperate flight will never fade. Summer, 1943. War still rages. The Allies are preparing for Sicily, and in the east, the Red Army braces for the storm at Kursk. But across Britain, one story dominates the headlines: -617 Squadron. They are no longer just a unit. They are a legend. In classrooms, boys trace the shapes of Lancasters in their notebooks. In pubs, men raise glasses to the lads who flew at 60 feet. Even in occupied Europe, whispers spread that British bombers can now strike with impossible precision. It gives hope to some and fear to others. The government seizes the moment. Propaganda reels are cut together, film of roaring engines. Spotlights on brave faces, the dramatic breach of the Mchien Dam. Narrators proclaim, "They flew where none dared to fly, and struck a blow that will echo through the ages." But in the quiet offices of the Air Ministry, the tone is different. Scientists and strategists gather to analyze what made it possible. Barnes Wallis' bouncing bomb upkeep has proven that physics and imagination can reshape warfare. It is, in essence, the first precision-guided weapon. New concepts follow: Tallboy and Grand Slam. The earthquake bombs, capable of cracking bunkers, bridges, even the hardened U-boat pens along the French coast. The age of brute force bombing is ending. The era of smart destruction has begun. Yet even as the world celebrates, 617 Squadron's story is far from over. They continue to fly, now retasked for high-value surgical strikes. They destroy the Salmoor railway tunnel, drop the Tallboy on the Tirpitz, and later, with surgical accuracy, Erase Hitler's V-weapon sites in France, but the cost remains high. The men who survive the dams often fall in later missions. And the man who led them, Guy Gibson, will not live to see the war's end. September 19, 1944. His Mosquito aircraft crashes in the Netherlands during a return flight from a bombing run. No one knows exactly why. Some say flak, others a navigation error. What they find in the wreckage are maps, mission notes, and his flight gloves, worn through at the fingers. He was 26 years old. At Scampton, a small service is held. The men stand silently, caps in hand, as a Lancaster roars overhead in salute, one engine feathered, symbolizing a fallen comrade. The sound fades, leaving only the wind across the runway. In the decades that follow, the Dambusters become legend. Books are written, films made. The 1955 movie immortalizes them, black and white, triumphant, filled with stiff, purblind courage. But behind every frame, there's an unspoken truth. Heroism is rarely clean. Barnes Wallis never fully recovers from the knowledge of the flood's civilian toll. He once said quietly to a journalist, "I wanted to save lives by ending the war sooner. I never meant for such suffering." Still, his invention reshaped history. It paved the way for guided bombs, cruise missiles, even the laser targeting systems of today. Every time a pilot lines up on a target using smart guidance, they are, whether they know it or not, echoing that night over the Ruhr. Today, at Scampton, a small museum preserves their memory. Inside, under soft light, sits a battered piece of a bouncing bomb casing, dented, sea-stained, and silent. Next to it, a note in Wallis's handwriting. For the men who made the impossible possible, visitors often stop, staring at it, trying to imagine the courage it took to fly so low, so fast, with the world's fate in your hands. And outside, if the wind is right, you can almost hear it, the deep rolling hum of Merlin engines over water, a sound that belongs to ghosts, now, but still stirs something in the living. The Dambusters didn't just break dams. They broke the limits of what men thought was possible, and in doing so, forever changed how war is fought and how courage is remembered.